Hi, I'm Brian Nathanson, and I am in Value Ops Product Management at Broadcom. You know, building a modern product is impossible without good customer feedback, whether those customers are internal or external. And what we found that a lot of organizations are trying to incorporate that feedback into what they're doing when they talk about building technology. And when I talk to companies, I'm always amazed at how digitalization has managed to permeate every single business, even businesses that you might not think of as technology companies, like Hershey's, the snacky powerhouse. From concept to candy, Hershey's has begun to centralize its value streams to better serve the company's IT and business needs. Emma Terzian has been instrumental in this transformation at the Hershey company. And so I'm spending a few minutes talking to her, should say, about value stream management. So welcome, Emma, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just go ahead and get started with it. And usually, because value stream management has kind of become this big thing that a lot of organizations are talking about, I usually like to start by asking, so what's your definition of value stream management?
And so my definition of value stream management is really finding the value add functionality, transformation, whatever you want to call it in your organization, that is meaningful to your organization. So being able to work on whatever will bring you the most value, and being able to pivot at any given moment is really crucial in today's business. So within our PMO COE, everything we're doing is to make IS more nimble. The PMO COE within IS here is fairly new organization, and we have roughly a year now of trying to find our footing and trying to be on our very new VSM journey.
Sure, absolutely. So just to clarify for folks who might not be familiar, right? PMO Center of Excellence, right? And then you also have Information Services, I assume is the name of the group correct, that we're talking about. Okay, fantastic. And then so you talked about the fact that you're very new to the VSM journey, and you're talking about the idea that you're trying to find your footing. So what have you been finding about that as a new organization to value stream management? What kind of has been the thought process, and what have you gone through there?
Yeah, so I mean, if you take a look, there's a lot of diagrams and mappings and shifts that I think can be really overwhelming as you start any type of transformation journey. So we wanted to simplify it. And really, my goal is to help others tailor it to what they need today. So I truly believe that VSM is anything to your organization, and it really meets you where you are in your journey. And you have the permission and forgiveness and grace to really iterate and do better when you know better, and most importantly, when you're ready to do better.
Sure, absolutely. No, I think that's a really important point. You know, a lot of organizations, I think, struggle with the idea that if you do something and it doesn't quite work out the way that you expected, or that as long as people's intentions are good, right, that we should learn from those mistakes and then be able to improve upon it and be able to learn and get better, as you've said, and be able to make that a part of our organizations as learning organizations, right, and be able to make that work for us. So when you talk about kind of being the new organization, you've gone through value stream management and you're getting in there and you're trying to encapsulate these things. Let's talk about the why you wanted to do this, though. What was it at Hershey that you're trying to accomplish, and what do you want to do there?
Yeah, so you can Google any number of news articles that are out there today with Hershey, and you can see that we've had a great year despite the pandemic. So our Chief Sales Officer, Phil Stanley, he really credits the creativeness of our customers who embrace the stay-at-home orders with at-home baking activities and at-home s'mores and creative methods of trick-or-treating. If you haven't Googled like some of the creative methods of trick-or-treating this year, you definitely should. It's really heartwarming. And I know that I'm biased, but I'm simply inspired by the agility of our supply chain for a 127-year-old confection company. Right. So consumer behavior hasn't been predictable at all this past year. And it really could have been a problem for us, particularly at Halloween, which is historically one of the largest candy holidays, right, for our candy sales. And we really didn't know, no one really knew how Halloween would be with social distancing and the restrictions varying by different regions. So with that being said, Hershey made the decision to really lean into Halloween and work with our retail partners, and we really knocked it out of the park. And we saw almost a 38% Halloween growth in August alone, which it would typically be a supply chain nightmare, and fulfilling all of those unexpected orders. But the strength and the agility of our supply chain and the team that really runs it is what made it a success story. So this is just one example of how our business partners within Hershey are doing some really innovative initiatives and pivoting in new ways during these unprecedented times. And we not only want to be able to support them and enable them, but we want to match their ability to pivot.
Sure. No, that's a great story, right? And I think everybody loves Halloween and kids getting dressed up and wanting to get the candy. And the problem, of course, is that they have to find new ways to do it. And so successfully coming up with those new and different ways to do that and able to meet that demand in those situations is really important. And you've mentioned the idea that the IS organization wants to support the business partners who are doing all of these great things and be able to match their ability to pivot, and that's part of the key critical reasons of why you're going on this VSM journey. So with that in mind, how would you describe your value stream management journey and where that's kind of started and where things are now?
Yeah. So, again, we're very new, very early in our VSM journey. We've been on Clarity for roughly 18 months now. We added Rally to our tool suite just over a year ago. And then we stood up the PMO COE, so our PMO Center of Excellence, inside IS less than a year ago now. So we're very early and trying to make big strides. So VSM to us right now looks different than it did 18 months ago. And it's going to look even more refined 18 months from today. So that's why I say that your journey can really meet you where you are today. And if you look at any of the value stream mapping processes that are out there, you're going to see somewhere in the beginning to map the current state, then design the future state, and then create that transformative plan. So we really started by taking inventory of our current state. And we realized that our business partners are doing some really cool things, and we wanted to keep up.
Sure, absolutely. No, I can certainly understand that. And when you talk about kind of the current state to future state, tell me about that current state. What'd you find when you were doing that survey? What seemed to be the things that you were looking at?
Yeah, so to be honest, we're not any different than most organizations. So I joined Hershey over a year ago, or actually just a year ago. So I was part of the standing up of that PMO COE. And for the majority of my career, I spent as a consultant. So Hershey is really not different than most organizations that I encountered while I was consulting. We have a lot of silos. We still operate in a very departmental fashion, but we're trying to integrate applications into the business. And we're trying to see those value streams that cross organizations to maximize the value. So in that current state, we're trying to map it. We're looking at our PMO and how we're utilizing the tools, the functionality, leading practice standards that are out there, and then how our users are adopting those tools too. Because again, we were fairly new to the tools themselves. So there were some tasks that we were doing really well. And then there was a good bit of room for improvement that we found. And we uncover more room for improvement every single day. And I say that not to be discouraging, but to be realistic and to be okay with that realism. Because I really can't imagine ever being in a state that we could declare that our work was done. But doing this mapping process allowed us to take a closer look at our holistic system and decide what will add value.
I think what you just said is really important, right? That you have to start somewhere, right? And let's just decide what will add the most value right now and work on that and get started with it and move that forward. And then if we want to, continue to evolve that, we can do that. But it's important to find a place to start, because I think, like you said, it can get really discouraging if you look at everything and say, oh my goodness, what are we going to do in order to be able to do this? There's so many things we need to change, right? So I think that figuring that out is important. And you mentioned that you went through this mapping process. And so you've told me a little bit about the current state, kind of the way things are. Now, let's talk about that future state. Let's talk about what it is that you think is the aspirational goal. Where are you trying to get to?
Yeah, so for that second step of that simple VSM mapping, because we're trying to keep it simple, there's that ultimate utopian state of the product funding model. Okay. Right. And aligning your structure to that type of delivery method. And I can't say that I think we'll ever get to that structure. A lot of stars would have to align. But we recognize the benefits in that operating model. And we really want to try to reap as many of those benefits today as possible. We don't want to wait for trying to get to that end state. And I mean, I'll say in my experience as being a consultant, I know that switching to a product funding model is no easy feat. And the buy-in that you need for change management alone is extensive, but for our exercise of trying to map a utopian type future state, this was a perfect visualization for us for that value add exercise.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that to your point, right, in the customers that I've worked with are going through this product transformation. One of the challenges is the idea of thinking of technology spend as product. One of the advantages you have as a products company is that you have people who are used to thinking in terms of products. And so we're trying to basically adopt some of that thinking in IS and understanding how that would benefit, right? How you would benefit from being able to move in that direction, right? And with that kind of that idea of the exercise, so you have your current state and you have your future state. So now talk to me about going from A to B. What was the thinking about how you would go across?
Yeah, so creating that transformation plan, we had to very humbly take that current state where we were at the start of our journey and compared to the utopian state. And we also did some initial mappings of everything that we felt like we could improve along the way or that needed to be improved along the way. And in our minds then, the last piece was really to align to our company's strategy. And for us, this was key. This was kind of our North Star. And it really allows us to definitively prioritize and simply stop ourselves to ask, does what we're trying to do align with the company, where the company wants to go, where IS wants to go? Does it align with our senior leaders' goals for the year? And if it doesn't, then we ask ourselves, will something break if we don't do this, right? So this really was our focus to ensure that everything we were working on was either necessary or would add value. So we're continually improving and trying to iterate on our application improvements, and we utilize Rally within our own PMO COE team to deliver on these features. So I'm definitely going to talk a lot about our team and how we can deliver that with using Rally. And what we started to do within our PMO COE team was exactly what we needed with our applications and our project lifecycle as well.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that in talking about kind of those steps, right, of how to create that plan, you mentioned some of the benefits and the things that you're trying to do, right? Be more definitive about prioritization. Are you in alignment? Talk to me more about kind of those benefits and what you're looking to achieve, because I think it's important for anybody who might be listening to this to understand that this really is something that could benefit the organization, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So number one, our PMO COE team was really trying to optimize our flow of work. So we each come to the team with a varied experience and skill sets, really ranging from managing tools like Clarity and Rally, methodology, both waterfall and agile, finance, governance, even change management. So being able to come together to really map our goals and our initiatives and our needs too, we were able to remove those silos that had previously been there to create a single vision together. So before we started on our VSM journey within our own team, we were all working independently on our own initiatives. We have no real connection to each other in our work. So we began just by beginning, really, and just putting things out there and utilizing Rally to map our work and to begin to see those patterns of overlap and identify the concrete features that we needed to and that we could deliver together. And we have iterated on this so many times, and we haven't been afraid to iterate on it as well, as we keep trying to get better at this process of collaboration. So within our own team, we kind of became our own little pilot of giving ourselves understanding and empathy and experience to really try to apply this at a larger scale. So we can empathize with the struggles because we've had similar struggles within our own team and adopting these mindsets. And we really created an open dialogue about what we should continue, what we should stop, what we should start in order to get better. And it, we've iterated on these practices as a team, and we found what works for us. And it's not perfect agile in any sense, but it's helped us in a very real sense because we focus on the work and we get the priority items out the door. And it also has created very real conversations about availability and our workload. And to be honest, it's also opened the door to have conversations about mental health as well, which has been really big at Hershey during this pandemic, especially. So working remotely in these really weird times right now and being part of a team that's constantly checking in with each other, it's really helped us feel connected. And we check in with each other work-wise, personally, and overworking-wise. What can we take off your plate? What can we give to someone else? And what should not be a priority at all? And it's really given us that power to pivot and have that human aspect in there. So I would say that within our own team, VSM has taken down the walls of our PMO COE house and made it open concept.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have a good example of kind of that type of thing, where you, because the silos have started to break down, you've made a decision or at least had options that you might have had?
Yeah, for sure. So a really good example, particularly for me, I wanted to put an enhancement out there for onboarding of new resource managers. And as soon as they were added to Clarity, and in my tools mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have them added to Clarity. We'll trigger a Clarity workflow process. It's going to go attach documents somehow. And then I'm thinking, would I store the documents in the knowledge store? Now that's creating duplicates because that's not where the documents are stored. So it's blowing up in my head of I just want to do this enhancement. And probably if we didn't have these silos broken down, I probably would have gone through with that. And that's how I would have done this enhancement. But talking it through with the PMO COE team of here's something I want to do, our change management senior analyst, she spoke up and she said, hey, we've been doing all these great blog posts and quick reference guides in SharePoint and Teams for our resource managers. Why don't we utilize that? And I kind of had to step back and say, yeah, that's great, but I don't understand, because I don't know SharePoint. I'm in Clarity and I'm in Rally most of the time. And she goes, well, we can trigger emails to these people. And we can give them the exact content that they want. And then it moves forward for the future as well. As we add new content, it will just automatically be added into the emails. And in my mind, it all of a sudden clicked that this is exactly what we needed, where instead of me wasting more work on doing something in Clarity, we can utilize work that we've already done in SharePoint. And now we just need the connection of how do I trigger to her that someone new has been added. So it blew my mind of really seeing the connection and how we had taken down those silos and working together to deliver something.
Sure, absolutely. I can certainly understand that. And I like your metaphor of the open concept, right? You're taking the house and you're taking it from being all subdivided, and you're gonna have it be more open and be able to take advantage of things like what you were just describing, where a situation where you might not have understood or might not have realized that there's an opportunity there, and more open lines of communication, less room for misinterpretation, all those types of things, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
you've mentioned tools a few times, Clarity and Rally and so forth. Tell me how the Broadcom solution, Value Ops, works as part of your value stream management.
Again, so we've been on Clarity for roughly 18 months now, Rally for a year. We use Rally within our own team because we're trying to eat our own chocolate, like we say. But in the beginning, if we take a look back at when I joined the team and we're trying to do an analyzing how our current state was in our journey, we were really utilizing just basic idea and project management, as well as time management in Clarity, right? So we didn't have too much customization within the tool. We really stuck to out of the box, and in our minds, we really wanted to adopt that crawl, walk, run approach. So we were in that crawling phase, but it didn't really leave us with too much right out of the gate, with in terms of trying to get an easier adoption. But it left us in a state where we didn't have project plans. They weren't in Clarity. We just had open for time entry tasks, very high level stages, and allocation wasn't really accurately accounted for. So we had team members saying that they didn't have the availability to work on projects, but Clarity didn't reflect that. So it was a big mismatch in what we were seeing and what we were hearing. And then we also had pockets of the organization that wanted to start delivering in an agile fashion, but we weren't quite ready for it. And worst of all, our users really found Clarity a little hard to use. And it was making our adoption lower than what we wanted. So we realized that we had a lot of work in trying to get these users where we wanted to. And we continue to have a lot of work, but we've definitely made some progress toward that.
Sure. I mean, and you've talked about a lot of the different things, right? You didn't want to do too much out of the gate, but then if you don't do enough, people look at it and go, well, what's the value there? I'm not seeing any information I want. And then when I do try to get information in, oh, that's too difficult. So why are you making me do that? And so, but it sounds like, as you've mentioned, there's a lot of steps, like there's a lot of things that you have to do. It's a kind of a huge stack of things. So how do you approach that? How do you tackle the large stack of, all right, here's all the things we're going to need to do to go to even just crawl?
Yeah. So I definitely I'm a big supporter of, we did exactly what we needed to do to get us to the state of where we needed to be today, right? So just rolling out the initial ideas and projects and time management set us up for a good foundation of where we can build today. But with so many opportunities for improvement, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the massive to-do list that we had, and it was really that's how I felt in the beginning too. It looked like such a tall order, but we really, had to stay focused and remain practical and choose what would be useful for today. And it was in alignment with that utopian state. So find something that's in alignment with that future state where we want to go, but it can add value today. So we really focused on aligning to that company strategy, listening to our business partners' needs as well as our own needs within IS, and then decide the path forward for that first incremental shift toward that utopian state, right? And we started by creating that transformation plan in our VSM mapping.
Sure. Right. So tell me about a couple of those value streams. Tell me about a couple of the things that you were looking to get the benefit out of right away.
Yeah. So for us, taking a look at that current state, it really became clear that we needed to provide flexibility in prioritization, and that we needed to utilize the portfolio management within Clarity. So we needed to get a handle on if, very plainly speaking, if we're doing the right projects at the right time, and if we have the people to do the work, and we wanted to give ourselves that flexibility to pivot if needed. So with the mapping of our current state, we knew that in order to figure out if we had enough people to do the work, then we needed to kind of clean up our resource management usage. And again, we were hearing employees say, I can't work on that project. I don't have the capacity for it. But here in Clarity, it says that we have enough people to work on all of our projects for the rest of the year. So there was definitely that mismatch that we recognized, that in order to be able to see the holistic portfolio, we needed to clean up that data. So we grew our PMO COE team by adding a senior analyst focused on resource capacity and optimization. And she joined our team in January. And right away, she began by standardizing roles. We've been creating an RM toolkit dashboard, trying to make it easier for our resource managers within the tool to manage allocations. We send out weekly notifications to them as well. And then we're iteratively training these resource managers on the proper allocation and kind of giving them that education of how it feeds into the portfolio and how it actually helps them, let them see the why of why it's beneficial to actually do this work. And one of the biggest pieces of it, we had the backing of our CIO and his willingness to pull up Clarity and show Clarity to his leadership team has been instrumental in trying to get us to clean up the data. And we report on that data weekly, monthly to the teams. And we've also been using the Rigo adoption metrics to really constantly have a visualization into it and improve it, and letting them know how the progress that we're making. So we're really always operating in that data-driven mindset, and trying to get a handle on everything.
Sure. That data-driven mindset is really popular in organizations these days because it hopefully takes a lot of the politics out of decision making and understanding and making sure everybody's reading off of the same page, right? What else? So you talked about resource management. So what other value stream aspects were you looking at?
Yeah, so if we dive a little bit deeper into the portfolio governance, so we again expanded our team within the PMO COE, and we added a manager for portfolio governance. And her job is really to drive that portfolio enterprise ranking and working hand in hand with the tools to really accurately rank and create water lines within Clarity portfolio. So previously, this was accounted for in Excel sheets. And so it was a big initiative for us to make sure that this was all included, and having that focus on getting the representation of the intake, everything coming through the funnel, included with our in-flight projects that were already in Clarity, so that we can verify that we have accurate data within these investments as well. So we worked directly with her to add additional new fields or dependencies that were directly linked to the prioritization methods, and really providing that visibility, and iterating on this to make it better every month as we're doing new rankings. It's really given us that complete approved project list. And then we also utilize portfolio plans within the portfolio module to take a snapshot every month so we can actually see how our prioritization has shifted. And again, we're very new in that journey, but it's giving us that data so that we can make those decisions to pivot as necessary, and to see where we're missing data points.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
And additionally, with the portfolios as well, we did a reorganization where we also have a leadership group of portfolio managers. And this group will partner with our business to really provide visibility and help them organize their initiatives that IS would be involved in. And it just really strengthens our relationship with the business, because we're working to evolve to support and be a better partner.
Sure. So, Emma, you had mentioned a number of the different things that you're doing in terms of resource management, portfolio governance, but you haven't mentioned Agile a lot, except at the very beginning. We talked about you have some groups that are looking at Agile. How does Agile fit into what you're talking about?
Yeah, so another work stream that's happening in parallel was setting up our Agile practice. So with pockets of our organization wanting to execute in Agile teams, we really entered this hybrid world. So we've set up our rally system to represent departments within Hershey, which is where our teams are currently sitting. As we continue to shift and grow, and especially toward that product funding model utopian state, this is one of those components that could evolve, right? And the rally hierarchy could represent those product families, but we're nowhere near that point right now. So we definitely use our department structure, and then we represent our work in epics and capabilities. And then the user stories. In our hybrid world, these capabilities actually come through our typical project intake, and they look similar to a waterfall project. And during the planning phase, there's an Agile readiness scorecard. And if they pass the Agile readiness, then we would do execution in an Agile fashion. So this is where we utilize those value ops and the Clarity Rally connector, so that we can carry those capabilities from Clarity down into Rally, where then the Scrum Master and the team would do their everyday activities utilizing the Rally tool. And then we get the featured data rolling back into Clarity, and that execution data and percentage roll-ups coming back to the tool for our portfolio governance.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that why don't we change gears and talk about the new things that you're looking to do? Kind of what are the things that you are still trying to achieve, and then maybe what types of tips or recommendations do you have for people, like if they're looking at something that they want to do?
Yeah, for sure. So we're looking to start a new journey in our digital ecosystem, and this would really take us from that project-based portfolio to a capability-based portfolio, and it's really the start of beginning to explore what does a product actually mean at Hershey besides just a chocolate Hershey kiss, So our digital ecosystem is looking to see end to end from the supply chain to the consumer. And the next journey is really taking those various capabilities in a digital perspective. And we want to use Clarity and Rally together, using value ops to map those constellations. So our goal is to have these no longer in Excel, and utilize Clarity roadmaps, breaking them down into Rally as capabilities, and then tracking how they deliver to our holistic portfolio, to really gain the most value out of our digital ecosystem.
Sure. That makes perfect sense.
I
Tips
guess
and recommendations?
Yeah, if I had any recommendations, I would say that it's really important that your organization, you feel safe to make a mistake. And I don't mean actively trying to make mistakes. You should definitely always have the best intentions of what you're doing, but without the freedom to take calculated risks, you really stifle that innovation. And I think it's important to give the teams the ability to iterate and recognize that they might need to reset. Within our own team, we've reset probably almost every iteration. And we feel empowered to change when we feel like something's not working for us. And I think that's allowed us to get as far as we have today.
Right. And I think that dovetails nicely with what you were saying about all the diagrams and mapping. So start with something today, iterate through it. You can always improve on it next time around and evolve as you go. So I think that makes it work out really well. So, well, Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about value stream management at Hershey's. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much.